The following review has been made possible by the generous donation of a YouTuber who wishes to remain anonymous. Thank you, kind sir. Now show me your red, son. From the twisted mind of Suda51 comes his latest 50 bucks worth of what the fuck, Lollipop Chainsaw. Now right off the bat I'll tell you that I've not been a huge fan of Suda's earlier games. I liked the concept of Killer 7, but I hated the gameplay. No More Heroes was funny, but I hated the waggle controls. Shadows of the Damned was funny and had fantastic art design, but the gameplay felt 2 generations behind. So that brings us now to Lollipop. In a lot of ways, Lollipop Chainsaw is the spiritual successor to Shadows of the Damned. Both have wisecracking heroes taking out supernatural enemies. Both have a lot of sexual innuendo and dark, perverted humor. Both combine melee and gun combat. Both have quirky soundtracks. And both have dismembered talking heads as your sidekick. Yeah, it's that kind of game. So you play as Juliet Starling, local ditzy blonde cheerleader who also happens to be a member of a family of zombie slayers, whose weapon of choice is her beloved bedazzled chainsaw. As Juliet is gearing up for her 18th birthday party, a zombie outbreak unleashes its dark fury upon the land. As she fights her way to the school, she runs into her boyfriend Nick, just as he gets bitten by one of the aforementioned undead. To spare him from becoming a zombie himself, Juliet cuts off his head and enchants it to keep his brain alive. She then hooks his head onto her back, so he spends the rest of the game cracking one-liners whilst bouncing off her ample, barely legal ass. Now wait till you get a load of this shit. The plot revolves around, I shit you not, an emo kid named Swan from Juliet's school who decides to use his dark, gothy emo powers to bring about the end of the world, in retribution for none of the hot chicks at school wanting to give up the pussy, Juliet being amongst them. He accomplishes this by ripping a hole between our world and quote-unquote rotten world where all evil resides. This is all explained in a rather hilarious bit of exposition provided by Juliet's sensei Morikawa, a butcher knife and fish-wielding pervert and Asian stereotype who buys it earlier in the game and spends the rest of his time speaking to Juliet from beyond the grave, usually via her chainsaw's built-in telephone. Yeah, it's that kind of game. The plot makes little sense, but it's not really supposed to. The script was co-written by Suda51 and James Gunn, a writer and director whose career started with Tromeo and Juliet for Lloyd Kaufman's Troma Studios, and then he went on to direct such cult classics as Slither starring Nathan Fillion and Super, a dark superhero comedy starring Rainn Wilson. Somewhere in the midst of all that, Gunn found the time to write the first 2 Scooby-Doo movies, both of which co-starred Sarah Michelle Gellar, which seems to have influenced his writing on this game, as Juliet borrows a lot as a character from the Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV show. I'm not gonna lie, the script is fucking hilarious in an intentionally bad way. The enemies constantly insult and berate Juliet throughout the game, calling her bitch and whore and whatnot. She just takes it all in stride with a big grin on her face and keeps on going, unlike another recent female protagonist who also enjoys subjecting the audience to blowjob innuendo using lollipops, that being Bayonetta, who would put a bullet up your ass just for looking at her wrong, much less calling her a bitch. Even the people Juliet rescues gets in on the constant insulting and objectification of the character. One student she rescues hands her some coins and says, "I'll be masturbating to you when I get home," and yet if you use the analog sticks to get a better look at Juliet's ass, she covers her nether regions with her hand. And there's actually a trophy for doing that, despite some of her latter costumes being so skimpy that they make some of the outfits from Onechanbara look tame by comparison. This weird mix of misogyny and high school good girl attitude is a refreshing contrast to Bayonetta's "I'm a bad girl with big guns and my pistols are large too" attitude. In fact, I think the two games complement each other rather well, to the point where I'd be interested in seeing Suda51 and Hideki Kamiya from Platinum Games work together on something, as I feel Suda's concepts and writing would mix well with Kamiya's expertise in third-person action titles. Speaking of Onechanbara, when I first saw a video of Lollipop Chainsaw, that's the first game that popped into my head. I'm pleased to report that while the combat in this game is not quite up to Bayonetta's level, it's leaps and bounds beyond the horrible, bland, and glitchy hell that was Onechanbara. Juliet controls like she wants to be Bayonetta, but was taught how to fight by Garcia Hotspur from Shadows of the Damned, albeit at a much faster, smoother pace. Attacking with square causes Juliet to punch and kick enemies with her pom-poms. Doing so will cause a zombie to become dizzy, at which point you can then hit the triangle button and Juliet finishes them off with the chainsaw. Get a close group of zombies together and get them all stunned at once, and hitting triangle causes a chainsaw kill combo called Sparkle Hunting. In addition, you have a combat meter in the lower left corner that fills up as you defeat enemies. When full, you can trigger an invincibility mode where Juliet glows in all the colors of the rainbow, one hit killing anything on screen, as Tony Basil's 1982 pop hit Mickey plays in the background. Later on in the game, you'll acquire the ability to turn your chainsaw into a long-range shotgun, and also the ability to use Nick's head in various weaponized forms. Nick comes in handy, or heady if you will, in other ways as well. At various points throughout the adventure, you'll come to a dead end, and nearby there will be a headless zombie whose body is glowing in a shade of bright neon blue. Juliet sticks Nick's head on the body, which turns into a QuickTime event where pressing the correct button sequence causes Nick to dance over to whatever obstacle is blocking your progress and smashing it to bits. There's also Nick tickets. When using a Nick ticket, a slot machine pops up. Land on Nick and you'll be able to use Nick's head as a sort of super attack. The attack starts with Juliet kissing Nick before taking him into combat. Do this 100 times and you get the Kiss Nick 100 times trophy, but the tickets themselves are very rare as pickup items, so to get this one you'll likely be buying a lot of them from the store. Speaking of the store, there's a lot of stuff to buy in this game. There are power-ups for improving your health, strength, and so on. There's numerous combos you can purchase, along with lollipops for replenishing your health, music CDs, new outfits for Juliet, and concept art. This plays into why many people who demoed the game probably didn't care for the combat. When you start out, you have very few moves you can pull off. You earn coins for killing enemies, and the better the combo, the better the cash. Once you've unlocked the more powerful combos, the game's action improves tenfold, almost to being as good as Bayonetta, only without any cool juggling air combos. Although you can use the circle button to leapfrog over enemies and then chainsaw them in the face from between your legs. Yeah, it's that kind of game. In short, when it comes to combat, you have to play through the campaign at least twice before you really get a sense of the game's true potential. Unlock all the combos, set the difficulty to the highest setting, and then play through it again, and you'll really be amazed at how much better the game becomes. I understand why the unlockable combo system was implemented, but I think there should have been at least 3 more of those combos available from the start of the game, as that would have opened it up a lot sooner. At various points in the game, you'll get to partake in numerous mini-games, such as Zombie Basketball, where you have to score 100 points in 3 minutes by lobbing zombie heads into the basketball hoop, or Zombie Baseball, where you have to protect Nick from zombies with your chainsaw gun as he rounds the bases. There's also a scene on a farm where you run over zombies with a wheat combine, and several chainsaw dash scenes with you running quickly down a set path, leaping over ramps and splattering any undead who get in your way. These different scenarios really mix things up and diversify the gameplay, keeping it from becoming too repetitive. The graphics have a sort of grainy filter overlaying everything to give the game that kind of 70s exploitation horror flick look. The levels are nice and varied. although in the beginning a lot of it seems to take place in narrow corridors, but then again, that's at the high school. Going from a high school to a farm to a super arcade, where you have various levels that have a sort of Tron look to them, each inspired by classic arcade games such as Pac-Man and Impossible Mission / elevator action. All of the locations on the map are named after directors of famous zombie movies. Hence you have San Romero High School, the Fulci Fun Center, and so on, which is a fun little Easter egg for those of us who grew up watching those movies with the volume turned down so our parents wouldn't know we were still up. Going along with previous Suda51 titles, the soundtrack is quirky and fun, ranging from stereotypical metal tracks to classic songs like the aforementioned Mickey and even the famous 1958 hit Lollipop, this being the later cover version by the Chordettes, which plays in the background when you're shopping at the store. One of the best highlights of the game are the boss fights, which are long and varied. Each boss is unique, from magic-spewing hippie chicks who trap Juliet in a sort of psychedelic limbo, to UFO flying disco kings, to a Godzilla-sized zombie Elvis monster known as the Killabilly. Each boss fight has multiple stages to it with its own unique strategy involved. There's a lot of bang for your $50 here. In addition to multiple difficulty levels, there's also a ranking mode where you can post your high scores to a world leaderboard, dozens of items to buy, students to rescue, a good ending and a bad ending, and so on. I know a lot of you were expecting this to be a don't buy this shit video, and honestly, I thought it would be as well, only to find myself enjoying the game more and more the longer that I played it. I really do feel that much of the negative press and reviews this game got early on, at least in the United States, came from reviewers who gave it one playthrough on easy mode and then never bothered to explore it any farther than that, never seeing the more advanced combos that only come from extended play, along with the first couple of levels taking place in those narrow hallways I mentioned earlier. The difference between the first playthrough and a playthrough after unlocking Juliet's true combat potential is just night and day, making it feel almost like a totally different game than from the first time you played it. The graphics are good, the music is great, there's plenty of stuff to keep you coming for more, and the story is so fucking out there and utterly disgusting that you can't help but laugh the whole way through. In short, this is the first Suda51 game that I've played where the gameplay evolves to become equal to the story. And for that, I'm pleasantly surprised at my willingness to give Lollipop Chainsaw 5.5 stars out of 7. Christ, what a cock tease.